Hello. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our not bi-weekly annual bi-weekly annual. What am I talking about? Our not bi-weekly dev stream. My name is Matt, and we don't do this as much as we used to, and I am totally lost as to what we should do from now on. So, hi, Mark.
Hi. So I'm Mark. I work on the Foxhole team. Are we introducing ourselves? This is like awkward. We usually
Yes,
don't
we
introduce
should.
Well,
ourselves.
I mean, I did, and then you, and then I introduced you, kind of, and then
Yeah.
there's Max here, and there's Julian. So now everybody's been introduced. introduced.
Hello.
God, I'm so rusty at this. Hi, Mark. What's up?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I'm just so happy to be back. This is our first stream of the new year, and I've just been waiting for us to be able to finally talk about what we've been working on. Because we have a lot of exciting things in the short term. We have a lot of exciting things in the long term. Like we said last year, there's just so much still to be done, and not much has. In terms of how much effort we're going to put in Foxhole, nothing has changed after 1.0, and that actually brings us to our first slide. So, if it's okay, man, I'm just going to jump straight into it.
It's okay by me.
Great. So, I wanted to talk about the roadmap. Um, and just to go through this again for anyone who's new, we work on big updates and smaller interim updates. The last big update was update 50, which coincided with the 1.0 release, and we said it at the time that 1.0 would not fundamentally change our development effort or cycle. It's just going to be another big update, and after that, we're going to continue working on the small updates, one in December, one in early 2023. And that's what we've done. In the last update we worked on was right before the holidays, early mid December, we launched. The dev team took a bit of a break over the holidays. Getting 1.0 out the door was a huge effort. We've been working on Foxhole for like 6, 7 years now. And um, it was a nice rest over the holidays. We got back in January, got back on the horse, and started working on Update 52. Well, that's not entirely true. A little bit of work going into Update 52 was done prior to the holidays, of course, but a lot of it happened afterwards, um, and that resulted in this upcoming release soon. So it was about a 2 to 2.5 month cycle. And just to talk a little bit about our small updates and our big update versus the big updates. The big updates are where we really want to expand and try to push the envelope with the game into new territory. Being able to work on the big, large pieces, big things that we've been wanting to do for a long time, things that players have been excited about. And the small updates are more of a fine tuning of what's there, focusing on game balance, fixing bugs. Sometimes with the small updates, we can be a little quieter for a month or two, and we found that that gives us the opportunity to listen to the community instead of promising features way too far ahead. And this has really given us the flexibility to be able to make changes on the fly. As an example, in this update, um, late last year, we were getting a lot of feedback on structure decay and certain issues on the builder front. Um, and then we were obviously paying attention to that sort of thing, and then switching over into the new year, obviously we've seen a lot of strong feedback on anti-griefing and on the moderation front, and this has given us the ability to look at what everyone's saying, put our heads down, try to generate a list of concrete issues that we can work on and fix, and try to get it into the form of an update into players' hands as soon as possible. So that's kind of how things go. And now here at Update 52, we have Update 53 ahead of us a little further down the road this year, and then obviously later in the year, there's going to be the next major update that we have to look forward to. And there's some really exciting things that's going to be happening there. So yeah, so jumping into update 52, I want to start here with server optimization. So this is a little bit of the of part of the lower key work that we do. That it's not flashy, it's not on the surface very exciting, but it is important. An example of this is in update 51. We spent a lot of time on optimizing vehicle movement. So if you recall, after update 50, when during the larger wars, when a region was very populated, some of the movement on vehicles were hiccuping, they were choppy, they weren't smooth, and we spent a lot of time on the engineering front trying to smooth that over for update 51. And there's always work to be done, but I think there has been a huge improvement in terms of vehicle movement. Versus the prior updates. And in this particular update, we also wanted to spend a bunch of time on optimizing things. And one of the things we took a look at was um, how much bandwidth was being spent on certain events that were causing strain on the servers. And one of the big things was um, these certain events that would happen would um, place strain on the server, and we were able to, and it was caused by bandwidth. And bandwidth is, it's not only causing strain because of the bottleneck on networking, but also like your server trying to on the CPU side, trying to get all this data out the door. And we were able to like have an order of magnitude increase here. And partly this was partly our fault. You know, when we originally worked on these features, there weren't so many players, so we weren't as concerned about this. When we had like 1/5 the players, it didn't even matter that much how much bandwidth was going out the door. But now that we're beyond 1.0 and there's a lot more players on the servers, this became a growing problem. So it's something that we wanted to take a look at. So we spent a bunch of time at the beginning of this year working on this, and I hope in the next update after that, we could always chip away at these sort of technical problems, one step at a time. Um, so next thing I want to talk about is griefing and moderation. So obviously this has been a big topic. It's not, the most pleasurable topic to be talking about, and it's always an ongoing battle between um, how the game is changing, what tools we're adding into the game, what we're doing on a moderation team front. It's always a back and forth battle. So we know that there was a lot of strong feedback that came in um, over the last month. We were able to adapt, right, and generate a list of what we can do in the next update, and we changed gears a bit and started to chip away at that. So I'm just going to go through the list of things that we're able to get into this update. But I do want to mention that, griefing and moderation, there's no silver bullets, as we learned over the years. There's only concrete things you can try to improve. You can try to make things better. And it's always going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle yesterday. It's going to be a battle today. It's going to be a battle throughout this whole year. It's going to be next year. And we're just always going to continue to chip away at it. So I'm going to go through the list. First thing here is gates will automatically close. So even if someone has left gate open, it will revert back to its closed state on its own after a while, which might mitigate some small percentage of cases of griefing. Players that have incurred too much vehicle self damage will now be restricted from driving. So this is extending the system we have for friendly fire into vehicle self damage. So if somebody damages their own friendly vehicles, then they will be placed restriction. It may slow them down. Again, it's not a silver bullet, but we're trying to tackle this problem one step at a time. Friendly vacuum vehicles that are driven into water will have their contents considered for restoration. So this is an experimental feature, but one thing we want to take a look at was when this sort of griefing happens, starting to have a system in place that will take a look at the contents, take a look at the situation, and will restore in certain circumstances vehicles and contents back to friendly bases to try to deter this kind of effort from happening in the first place. But I do want to mention this is experimental. It is something that we're going to have to fine tune over time, and it's not going to be perfect. So this one we know is a very contentious change, an uncomfortable one, but it's something we had introduced in the dev branch last year. Players can no longer enter vehicles driven by the enemy, and we put this in for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons was to prevent this sort of griefing that can happen, and a lot of negative aspects of this were pointed out, and we had agreed with those points at the time, which is why we pulled it out. But coming back around to it, we reevaluated again, and again, this is always about the trade-offs in Foxhole, looking at the pros and cons. And there are cons, but ultimately we investigated a bunch of options, and we felt that this was the best one still, in order to preserve a certain functionality like ease of sharing with randoms or public players, and not compromising the collaborative aspect, of Foxhole. So certainly this will be a conversation that we can have in the dev branch, in terms of it's probably going to stay, but you know there's going to be conversations to be had, and we're happy to have those conversations.
Just to be clear on something too, this is like specifically like you can't enter a vehicle that is being driven actively.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like if a vehicle is just sitting around, you can still go steal it.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So the issue was that we had looked into other possibilities, such as players being able, uh, you know, having the AI defenses be more selective in which vehicles that it could fire at. But ultimately, we wanted to ensure that it was easy. One of the goals was ease of sharing with your team members without
Mm.
having everything locked down, because that is one of the best things about Foxhole, and it's always an uphill battle to keep that in the game. But again, this is one of those challenging issues. So um, this last one here is another experimental change, and is another discussion to be had. Some category of content mods are going to be restricted. Um, this is to reduce the cases of abuse. Again, this isn't a silver bullet against this type of abuse, but it is a step towards forward in trying to mitigate the ease of these kind of problems sneaking into the game. And we are taking care to ensure that we know that certain content mods are harmless, and we we're gonna work with you guys to try to figure out what's allowed and what's not. But again, this is a step forward. Structure event log. So this is something that has been asked for a long time. So basically, more complete logging across the board on a variety of activities, on structures. Sorry, activities on a variety of structures. So right now, there's logs on certain things like public stockpiles. There's there's region logs, and we want to extend this to structure event logs, so players can see more specifically a history of events that have happened at their structures. A couple of examples of this might be, you know um, who changed production options at a facility, who's upgrading a bunker. If somebody like wanted to grief and add some undesirable modification, you'd be able to see that now. And besides the griefing case, just it's also cool to just be able to see how your structures are being used. And this has been asked for a long time, so we're finally going ahead and have added this in. It's a difficult technical feature to have all this logging happen across such a large game, but we felt that it was an important time to add in this. And going along that, another thing that's been asked for a very long time have been reserve stockpile logs. So we have logs at normal stockpiles, but reserve stockpiles were a lot more difficult because of the sheer number of reserve stockpiles that exist at every storage depot across every region across the entire game. And having that work in a robust manner is a technical problem that we didn't want to tackle for a long time, or we didn't have time to. And we thought that since we're working on the other structured logs, now will be a good time to get these logs into the game. So you can now see a history of when stockpiles are transferred to other stockpiles, whether public or reserve. You're going to be able to see when transactions happened, and we're just finally happy to get this in the game after hearing years of requests from players. So really excited about this one. And finally, here there's a list of additional things that we felt we could fit into this update on the moderation front. So first of all, any significant structure damage across critical structures is now going to be logged in the event log. So this is a problem that has grown over time, as the stakes have risen in the wars, as we've added more valuable things, and just because of the current stakes, um, and so many things that can happen in the sandbox, it's important that when significant events happen, that there is a record of it, that there is a log of it, that can be used for moderation purposes. And this is something that we're going to be adding to the event log. More clarity on vehicle self damage, because there's definitely cases of legitimate vehicle self damage dealt by partisans, but we want to add a bit more extra detail in there, to get at more accurate information. So that's going to be there. Vehicle capture events are now displayed in the text chat log. So again, this is a pretty critical event that we don't want to be missed. That's going to be added there. And uh, again, excessive damage is shown in text log. There's generally more information shown in text log. So when certain events happen, they can be visible and seen fairly fairly quickly. Another thing that we want to do was improve the kind of feedback and communication we give on the moderation front. So um, we've often been more quiet about these sorts of things because there's always a big concern from the moderation team of players figuring out how to circumvent our systems, being able to. There's always people trying to poke at things and see how we do things. So, but we do feel that we have done a poor job in um, communicating the kind of moderation activities that have happened, and that's on us. And we're going to try to improve things to give feedback more often and to try to give more details. Now, there's ultimately always going to be certain details that we can't mention for that very reason that I just said, to prevent malicious players from exploiting our systems. But we do think that we can find a better balance than we have now, and that's something that we're going to be taking a look at. Another thing that we've done over um, since New Year's, that we expanded the moderation team. We know the game is bigger now. We know the stakes of the wars are higher, and this is just another step in chipping away at this very large problem that's a constant battle. And finally, there is something I do want to mention. We do spend, just like we do spend a big portion of our time on improving things like server performance that aren't necessarily the most surface level facing thing. It's not like a game balance thing that everyone's worried about, or it's not like it's not like a new content. We behind the scenes spend a lot of time on um, trying to work on things like server performance. In the same way, we do spend a lot of development time and effort on backend tools on the moderation front, being able to collect a lot of analytics to help our moderation team, being able to be more effective in looking at reports and in issuing the correct course of action, finding people that have violated the code of contact. But uh, this is just a lot of behind the scenes work that we don't get to talk about very often, unfortunately. But it is something that we're always looking to, and always a percentage of our development time is spent on this. So yeah, that's why we're going to go through this update. We're going to continue to work on this, and yeah, I think we can move on to talking about other things now. Great. So, switching gears on the map front, maybe Max, you can take a couple of these slides off my hands. It's my
Give your voice a rest.
throat's getting a bit dry here. Yeah.
Cool. So the map screen is something that we've been wanting to return to for a long time. We wanted to give you guys a little bit more information, but then the more information we gave you, the more it started to clutter up the map screen. So we added a bunch of map legend options there. So on the left-hand side, you can see the legend. You'll be able to click on them and disable those specific icons. You'll also notice a number of new icons, things that include or things like the that used to exist, or sorry, some things like the assembly stations and the transfer stations. Those are all new, so you'll be able to mouse over those and see like stockpile levels. So this sort of comes on the heels of another bit of feedback that we've heard a lot from you guys, which was you wanted to be able to communicate more clearly what your facilities were used for. So much of that information should be exposed now. And these, probably the most important thing, which not that we didn't add to this slide, but now that I'm thinking about it, you'll be able to save your settings on the legend when you transfer regions, so you're not resetting it every single time you go up map.
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
it's actually a huge quality of life not having to re-click your filters again. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Facility map tooltips. So these are the tooltips that I was talking about. So you'll be able to mouse over like the light assembly station, be able to tell what vehicles are producible there. You'll be able to look at the transfer stations to see what materials are available. So if you're trying to set up like a public facility to build a specific kind of vehicle or vehicle variant, you can more easily advertise to the world that these things are available and that people can come and pick them up.
This is a cool one.
This one's cool. Yeah.
It's nothing. It's nothing important. Yeah.
This is one that nobody asked for, right?
So we saw on Reddit a lot of people were constantly posting like at the end of the war, people would post like the video of the image of the rail networks per either side. And we just thought those were the coolest things in sliced bread. So we thought we should probably get around to implementing these in game so that you guys can use them. We hope this will also have some invisible gameplay improvements where you guys won't be building redundant railway lines. You might more easily be able to tell which rails go to where you're trying to get to. So fewer mistakes for driving through towns.
So both the world tracks and the player built ones are shown here, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So you guys can see the world tracks, which still exist in the game. You can see one that goes through Blemish there. That just, yeah, it smoothly transitions. You'll only be able to see your factions railway networks, but it should be, hopefully it'll be robust enough for you guys. But well, looking forward to the feedback in Dev Branch.
Cool. And this is something where it ties into the filters as well, so you can switch it on and off in case you're worried that this is going to color up your map. Correct?
Yep.
Cool. Great. Track switcher interface. Yeah, I can talk about this one a bit. So, so one thing we've observed is players in certain locations building a lot of track switches in a small area, and sometimes it's difficult to know which direction the train is supposed to go. And there's other improvements we want to make to train driving and this system. But one small iteration forward was to at least show more clearly where things are going. So if you can see here, switching between, there's just two screenshots here showing the change in the path, so that hopefully drivers of trains can more easily navigate through these more complex networks there. So it's a small change, but we hope it's one step forward on that front.
And I believe that arrow will point in the direction your train is going, whether you are in or out of the train. So you can navigate.
Yes.
You'll know better when you need to hop out to make the switch.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good stuff. Let's get to the good stuff.
All right. So decay mechanics overhaul. So this is probably the most central thing to the feedback that we got from players in terms of systems they'd like us to overhaul. And so the point of this slide, I'm not going to go through these points. They should be pretty self-explanatory, but the thing I really want to drive home here is that decay mechanics exist in the game, not because we like to punish you guys or because we want to give you guys more work to do. It exists as a technical limitation of the server. So we have completely overhauled this system. Before I get to the good stuff, I just want to have a big disclaimer there that because this is so closely tied to our technology and the limitations of like network bandwidth and server performance, that we may make things that we may have to move the numbers around during dev branch, and possibly we may have to do hot fixes during the live game to make sure that this mechanic is working as we expect. So yeah, take that as you will. Okay, so maintenance supplies. So I want you guys to clear your mind of all of the different tools and weird one-offs for decay mechanics that exist. So forget the supply station, forget the bunker supplies, all the base garrison upgrades that reduce the costs. All of this stuff has been removed or altered in some way. We did that to try to keep things as simple as humanly possible. We felt that the system previously was a little bit too complex, so we're trying something a little bit more straightforward. Garrison supplies have been replaced with a single item, which is maintenance supplies, so there's no more bunker supplies. You'll be able to produce these maintenance supplies at the factory, the mass production factory, and the materials factory, which is one of the first facility structures you'll build. The bottom line here is that we're removing the production bottleneck. So the biggest limitation before was that you could only have so many queued up at one time, so people were constantly fighting at the factory for the queue of garrison supplies. That bottleneck has been completely removed. But in exchange for that, what we have now is the maintenance supplies cost has been decreased in the subregion zones when server performance is optimal. So when there are few structures in an area of the world, your cost of garrison supplies should actually be less than it is in live right now, at least without any bunker upgrades or any of the extra superfluous stuff. But if server performance starts to tank, you might find that you're spending more and more time producing garrison supplies. So that's the trade-off. And again, with that big disclaimer that this value, this modifier might change as we try to narrow in on the appropriate level.
Yeah. To kind of just reiterate hard on that point is our ultimate goal is get rid of all this extra, try to reduce all this extra work as much as possible. We're on your side for that. Trust me. Like even when we go in and build, it's not our favorite thing, but also making sure that the servers don't come crashing down. Right. So like trying to reach those two goals, making building smooth, making the experience smooth, and keeping the servers smooth, being able to support 200-300 players in each region. That's the ultimate thing that we're contending with. So just want to hammer that home again. So
right, which I think will lead you guys to the natural conclusion you're going to come to, which is, well, like, are people going to hurt me by building more structures around me? Which we should move to the next slide. We've considered that as well. So what we have now is a maintenance tunnel 2.0. We've reused the age-old retired maintenance tunnel structure, which we hope has finally found its permanent home in this feature.
Yeah.
This thing's been around since the olden days.
Final destination.
Yeah.
It's the maintenance tunnel 2.0.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. So the maintenance tunnel is sort of what we like to think is sort of like your multi-purpose tool for controlling your maintenance decay or your maintenance supplies for your structures. You will be able to build one of these relatively inexpensively, and what it will give you is a series of controls that allow you to control like what structures you're going to prevent the decay for. So the first thing you're going to see there is the maintain structures. It coincides largely with your build menu. So if you want to prevent decay on just structure or on just bunkers, similar to the way the bunker supplies used to work, you'll be able to just toggle on just bunkers. If you're concerned that somebody is honing in on your area and is building a lot of stuff near you, and you don't want your effort to go into their structures, you'll be able to control the range. So you can specifically set it around where you're expecting your build area to be, so that you can more easily control what it is you're going to supply.
And one small point I want to sneak in. I wanted us to make a video of this, but unfortunately we ran out of time. But one neat small feature that's missing from this screenshot is when you hover over those icons, it actually shows you the exact icons for the structures that it's gonna maintain.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I thought is an important small detail to point out. Yeah.
Yep. I'll continue with this actually. So one more thing here is the modifier that I mentioned before. This is the main trade-off for all of these quality of life improvements with this, is that you'll be able to control your window. So we need to be able to control the number of structures that exist in a region. Will have an impact on how much effort you have to put in. So there needs to be a way to alter the amount of garrisons or the amount of maintenance supplies that you'll ultimately have to pay. But we don't want you to log off, say, expecting that your maintenance supplies will last for a day, and then somebody comes and builds a bunch of stuff and now it doesn't. So you're going to be able to control when your modifier will change, but it is going to be something that's outside of your control, but you'll be able to control at least when it will change. That way you'll be able to coincide it with your time zone or with when your play sessions are, so that way you can plan more effectively how many supplies you're going to need for the next day. The other points are, like, you'll be able to use the upgrade menu to tell which structures are preventing decay. We're going to support squad reservations so that you can lock certain maintenance tunnels to your squad, so that just your squad is able to alter the setting. And the bunkers are still going to continue to prevent decay, but they won't have this menu. The bunkers will just prevent decay for everything around them, and it exists for now in a state of sort of like a whole. We're going to try to use it as a way to prevent decay for people who don't want to get involved deeply in this system. That you can still bring your maintenance supplies to the frontline bunker bases, and that'll still prevent decay as always.
And I saw someone ask. They were asking if this could be visible on the map so they can see when it's time to resupply.
Yep, they will be visible on the map. So
Excellent.
you can mouse over them and see the supply status.
Perfect. All right, we ready to move on to the next slide?
Yep.
I love this one personally. It's
you go ahead then.
Personal pain. Yeah. So one of the biggest problems is you log back in the game. You came half a day late or however much your time, and your structures are all decayed. You have to go around, hammer them all. But now, if a structure has decayed, the maintenance tunnel or maintenance supplies will automatically passively repair the decayed structures. So we hope this will alleviate some of that pain that we've certainly felt ourselves. We know you felt it, and finally able to address this very long-standing issue. So, all right, moving along. Oh yeah, that's just a fancy picture of me showing. Hey, look, visualization. Look at how decayed your base is. Now it's fine. Anyways, that was just purely there for effect. So this is a big one too, and there was a lot of debate around this one. Actually, sorry, I totally went off rails. That's the next slide.
There wasn't a lot of debate about this one.
No one. Yeah.
No, it's because the screenshots are similar. They both involve the storage depot. So I just looked at it out of the corner of my eye. So Max, maybe you take this one.
Sure. So map design improvements, we've repurposed, or we've moved around some of the world tracks in the world. For example, in the screenshot, you can see the train tracks is now behind the Blemish storage depot as opposed to in front of it, because in the live game, a lot of you had pointed out that the trains tend to block the access to it. So we noticed that in a number of places. We're not convinced we've got it absolutely perfect. So if you do see more feedback for like ways that the pre-placed tracks could be improved, please let us know in the dev branch, and we'll do our best there. One thing that's we've improved some of our internal tools for preventing like climbing into disadvantageous places, but we haven't been able to implement this tool across the whole world. We decided to focus our efforts on just a select number of maps for now, which right now is Endless Shore and Farinac Coast. So you might see some aesthetic improvements to the level design around those areas, notably around east of Farinac Coast. Or
do we want to just talk about like what like the rock skirts and kind of like the reason they exist in a vague way anyway? So we used to have these, we still do, and you'll see it all over the place, where there are these sort of like rock formations in front of rock formations, and that's kind of just been like a style in the game. That was like Decay. That was like not something we wanted to do, and every time I would try personally, me or Max, we would try to do something more interesting than those. They would backfire on us like spectacularly because it would get abused and people would grief with the formations that we made. So now we've improved some internal tools where we don't need to have those anymore. And Max has been doing a really great job like in implementing and changing those areas back to what our initial sort of vision for them would be now that those tools have been improved. So
yeah, and
it's a long process though.
My understanding, this is work in progress, and I hope once it's done, we can go back and show you some of the behind the scenes work that we put into this, because some of the tooling is really cool. It's not really a player facing thing that we expect players to care about, but as a dev, it's kind of neat, some of the tech that we developed to make this happen. So
I did just say vision also, so sorry everybody.
You just had to squeeze
filling in their bingo card.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to the next one here. Max, can you take this one, actually?
Sure.
Yep.
Advanced construction vehicle. So a lot of this tech has been in the game for a long time. It was one of the ones that existed in your infantry or your equipment tech trees. But it's being moved finally out of this kind of obscure tech and into facilities. So you'll be able to upgrade a CV into an advanced construction vehicle. And in exchange for that, because we understand that that's a little bit less advantageous, we are allowing you guys to finally fill in tier 2 trenches and tier 2 husks. There are certain rules associated with this that I'll let you guys sort of discover for yourself. We wrote them in the additional details there, but bottom line is we think that it's going to be a pretty cool new way to remove the unwanted structures from the front line that you wanted to get rid of for so long.
And this has like the functionality that the advanced tech used to have, right?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, because that is so. Yeah, just a side note here. That tech has been a legacy feature in the game for a very long time. So one of the impetuses of this, part of the impetus of this change is to replace that with a more modern or a modern replacement for that, and to also sneak in these additional features that we know players have wanted. So
we've also improved the number of structures that it could build, because I think that there were a couple of them were left out, like the T2 and T3 bunkers. You wouldn't. So that has been expanded to be hopefully more consistent with what you would expect it to do.
Great. Tier 2 storage room. So this one is just a no-brainer. People have been asking for this one for a very long time, and it's finally here. There's not too much special to say. It's just a bunker room at second tier, right, Max?
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
All right. I wish I had more to say.
It's a lot of explosives.
So this one here, yes. So
did you skip a slide?
I did not skip a slide. I think there was an error in the deck, but
right. Okay.
Yeah. It should come later. If not, we can come back around to it. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah. So this one, we all have feedback about how frustrating vehicles freezing are, and we made a change that now vehicles will only freeze when water freezes. So this should significantly cut down that frustration. And we think at the same time it makes sense. Like one of the things we're always trying to aim for in Foxhole is things to make more physical sense. I know that's not always the case, but when making this change, we realized, okay, if you're coming to the game new, you're thinking about whether it makes sense that things would freeze at the same temperature. So this should be both a win on that front and also a win on overall reducing the amount of frustration around this around the frozen vehicles. Yes. Max, take it away.
This is a highly experimental feature.
Yeah.
Don't get too excited about this one. I know you guys have been asking for this one for a long time, being able to pull like a larger amount of items, but there's some usability issues that we have with this. It's not consistent across what you might expect. So we're experimenting with this to see how it feels. But so the number right now, which is 15, is quite low. We understand that, but we just want to make sure that we wanted to try it out first, and then as we see this get used, we'll consider making changes.
Yeah, this is always one of those, complicated Foxhole design problems, is that you make one change on one end of things, it impacts something on the other end. And we are always concerned about things like abuse when it comes to being able to retrieve things quickly or larger. So this is us pushing against that side of making things more convenient for certain players, but introducing a bit of risk on the other end, which is why we're starting very conservatively, and we're going to keep a very close eye on this. And just as a like clear heads up, it's experimental. It could change because of those reasons. So, this one sounds exciting, but don't get too excited yet.
I'm excited.
Max.
So the main point of this change was to give builders a buff to moving concrete around and using concrete. I think that this is a difficult one to explain because unless you're really intimately involved with constructing concrete structures, which is a relatively small portion of our player base, it's going to be unclear. But the underlying message we want to send here is we hope this will be a massive quality of life improvement for bunker builders. And we're looking forward to the feedback on how we can possibly make it better. But there's a lot of small changes that come with this that hopefully will make it a positive change rather than a negative one.
All right.
I love that concrete.
Moving on to the combat vehicle storage. So this is the one I was talking about a couple of slides back.
It is a really similar screenshot.
So one of our philosophies is that in Foxhole is that and one thing that makes it special is the spirit of collaboration, the spirit of sharing. You're playing on a team of thousands. It's not your own private squad or clan or something like that. Certainly there are those things in the game, but ultimately we want to encourage people to work together. And for a long time, we wanted the paradigm of vehicles to be, you produce them like the crates, but the moment you deploy them into a public location or you unpack those crates, it becomes a public item, and you can no longer store them back private. The exception we made of this was logistics, because logistics was a more special part of the game where you do want to be able to go back and continue your work. But there was a couple of reasons for us reevaluating this. One of those reasons is that with the introduction of facilities, there isn't a really good way to move vehicles around and stage them for in operation, since the variants aren't created in crates. And we also wanted better utilization of trains. That's another reason. And then the third reason is also because more of these items have become higher stakes and targets for potential griefers. We wanted, for those three reasons combined, we did want to reevaluate this. And it was a tough decision, but we decided at the end, with the current state of the game, with trains and facilities, it makes a lot more sense if combat vehicles can be individually stored at reserve stockpiles. So basically, these vehicles will work now exactly like the Logic vehicles. Now, this only applies to vehicles that are already supported at these structures. So this excludes certain things like battle tanks and super tanks and other things. So just to be clear, this isn't every single vehicle, but it does encompass, your Spathas, your Falchions, your Outlaws. Those variants, they're going to be, you're finally going to be able to store them in your reserve stockpile. You can use them, you can put them back, you can transport them between storage depots for preparation for an operation. So yeah, this is yeah, I think that's, it's actually another huge list I forgot about. So I don't know, do we even have time to go through this? Let me look at this.
Just rip through it.
Yeah. Okay, so these are smaller things, and we don't expect these to be type of features, but some of these impact your players. Some of these are just little rough edges we want to smooth over. So structure reservations, basically, The reserve multiple function at bunkers will now function similar to facilities in the way that they will reach all connected structures, making it more convenient than it used to be. This function has been added to the trenches, so this is just a small thing, smooth that over. One long standing system in the game that we haven't looked at for a very long time is the how frequently you can build. So it's kind of annoying to have to wait the 10 seconds if you make a mistake on your build site. It's a small issue, but it grates on you over time. And this was put into place like years ago to mitigate people using build sites to block shots and things like that. But those systems have improved on their own over time. So now we wanted to reduce that down to 3 seconds, and it just just reduce that friction slightly. Again, along the same line, just removing the cooldown between swapping build and upgrade mode. It's just an unnecessary extra annoyance there. Pipelines blocking, obstructing the structures underneath it. That's something that's also been fixed. Power line placement has had a little bit of friction there in terms of placing power lines that are close to each other. That's been made significantly easier because the minimum required distance has been reduced, so you can build more optimized power networks now at a more fine grained level in terms of placement. More options for demolishing structures, and this is another small annoyance. Just being able to place down a build site, even though you don't have the appropriate tool equipped. Just having to, sometimes you just want to do that out of convenience or a variety of reasons. So that's now allowed. World tracks have dedicated visuals to distinguish them from the player built tracks. This is more of a new player thing, just being able to see, this is a pre-placed track. This is a one that's player built. It's just a small thing, and extra detail in the tooltips. So that's definitely on the new player experience side. So
yeah, I just want to mention that a lot of these bullet point lists came from the feedback channel on the Discord and the Reddit. So if you guys haven't checked that out yet, our moderators have been doing a really good job putting those together into proper forums. I think it's called a forum now on Discord. They keep changing it on me, but they with proper categories and everything, which made finding these suggestions very, very wonderful.
Cool. All right, facilities. Actually, there's still more. Quite a few slides.
There's still quite a few left.
And
Yeah.
All right, let's.
We only
move
got
on.
2 minutes.
2 minutes left. Let's move on to the fun stuff. We started from the least fun to the most fun.
And now we have no time.
Now we have no time. Let's just not talk about the fun stuff and stop the stream.
We started like 15 minutes late. We got time. Keep going.
No, we didn't.
Fair enough. All right. Max, facilities.
Cool. So we added two new bits of content to facilities, continuing what we promised to do at 1.0, which is to continue to expand on the systems that we brought in, which was facilities. There's 2 bits of feedback from the players that we wanted to address with this new content. One was a complaint that there's no tier 1 pipe. We had some conversations about that, and we decided that this was the first step. The proper first step for a tier 1 pipe was creating like a tier 1 small terrain car that allows you to move fuel around. We don't expect that to replace pipes. Pipes will still be a valuable asset at tier 2, but we wanted to give you guys some way to move fuels around early on in the game. The other was the other complaint that came up constantly was that the fuel sources or the oil sources were hotly contested. And we took that feedback apart, trying to figure out exactly where the problem was, because we don't feel that there's a shortage of oil in the world, but we do recognize that people are fighting over the oil fields. And what we realized is that you guys are actually fighting over the automation of power. Oil is the only way to completely automate power in your facility so that you don't ever have to think about it again. So we looked at a way to not completely automate away power with something like with this coal power plant, but we wanted to give you guys an opportunity to create a type of power that lasts a longer period of time. So you're not sitting there constantly refueling your power stations every 15 minutes. Instead, you will be able to power up a coal power plant for, I believe, I forget the numbers now. You guys will tell me in Dev Branch, but I think it's something like 24 hours. It might be like 20 hours. So you'll be able to keep your facility running for a long period of time if you pile up the coal in these facilities. That's the main goal, so that you're not now bound to the oil fields to get automated power. This balancing update for this basic coal power plant is been extended to the advanced coal power plant. So you'll be able to run an advanced coal power plant for longer without needing to refuel it.
Great. All right, let's move on and talk about things on the game balance front. Now, we had originally planned more changes than we're making, and there's certainly going to be more smaller things in the release notes when it comes out in Dev Branch. But what we wanted to do was highlight the few things that both sides have been asking for. Again, this is small, so just to temper expectations, this isn't like, hey, we're solving everything that everyone wants to ask for on the faction vehicle or weapon front. These are just very few things that we've seen that we feel are quite important for each faction. So let's start on the colonial side. The first thing is having a weapon that's more competitive to the cutler. So the damage on the grenade launcher is going to be increased by 100%. It's, we don't want to make a mirror of the cutler, but we do want it to move the needle there and make it a lot more viable. And we know this has been one of the big things we've heard over and over again from the colonials. The other thing that we've heard is about colonials' viability of their super tank. So we're happy to announce that the Ares Rage is increased up to 40 meters. There are other improvements we do want to make to this vehicle in the future and other changes. But something that we want to do in the meantime is simply to increase the range to something that players have been asking for. We've heard a lot of comments the Ares should be a 40-meter vehicle. So happy to get that in there, right? Okay.
Cool.
So those were the two small changes. Now on the Warden front, Julian, you've been quiet.
No, yeah.
So finally, we can have something
cool.
to talk
So, yeah, on the Warden front, we've been hearing a lot about how the Wardens don't have easier access to a mobile 94.5 millimeter cannon, and from a very long time, a very old pitch that Max had of wanting to have an open top silver hand. The two ideas kind of combined. He told me not to mention his name in that one. The two ideas combined together to make to give them their mobile 94.5 millimeter. That isn't, obviously they have the super tank, but that's like super end game and big goal kind of vehicle. And yeah, so we combine them together and we're giving you guys this.
And what's the rage on this one, Max?
I believe we set to 40 meters.
Great. 40 meters for everyone. That's the theme of the Devstream.
Yeah. I think there's some, the front and back shots render with some cool interior details. I guess the visual from the cannon. I wanted to I showed everyone a GIF of the Stalin's hammer cannon firing, and I just kind of wanted to capture that in the gun itself. Obviously, it wasn't a tank; it was a piece of artillery. But we just kind of I personally wanted to kind of capture that feel with this one.
I think the interesting thing about this is that it probably will feel like a more mobile artillery cannon rather than like a tank from what I understand, and that's kind of the feeling that it has. It isn't this like big lumbering beast. It's a little bit more like a tank. Treads are required to move around the artillery kind of thing.
Great. All right. Now to the content that nobody asked for. Right?
All right.
Is to end off with the fun stuff. Max, maybe you can take the rest of these.
Sure. So this one, actually, this was we have another concept artist on the team. who is helping us out with some of this stuff. This is their first item that's going into the game.
Actually, I think the
Yeah, no, it's
first
done.
one was the liquid car.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So the second one.
I was gonna say the which team did you guys say expand? It was the moderation team. You expanded a bit earlier. Well, I wanted to bring up that we also are expanding the concept art team. We have a new concept artist to work alongside me, and now it's going to be exciting going forward.
Cool.
Yeah. So this.
And I guess you're bringing that up because that concept artist did work on this, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Max. We'll stop interrupting.
It's all good. Let me get to what this does. Okay, so the Havoc Charge is a 2-part satchel charge. You'll take they're a large item, so you'll carry one. You'll have to carry both pieces, similar to like the tripod weapons. You'll need the gun and the tripod, but in this case, you'll need the explosive and the trigger. You'll put them together at the target, and once it's placed, once you shoot it with a rifle or any weapon, any direct fire weapon, it will go off and explode. There's a number of other things that happens with this. There's a couple of other special cases that had to be addressed with this, but I'll let you guys discover those for yourselves in the dev brand. Yeah, that's it.
There's some reasoning behind this.
Yeah, so why we implemented the Havoc Charge?
Yeah,
there is a reason. It's not just
the Havoc. Yeah. So the Havoc Charge is for both factions, and it is going where the Satchel Charge used to be. So it comes nearer to the end of the tech tree, but it's subject to change whereabouts it'll go. The Satchel Charge, such as it is getting a significant nerf. Consider it very similar to the Hydra, the Hydra's Whisper. And it's going to become Warden only. So it's going to become the Warden's equivalent to the Hydra. And then in place of that, you'll have this high explosive satchel charge if you want to continue to do your old satchel operations.
Cool. And yep. Sorry.
Yeah. So these are the satchel charge and the Hydra's Whisper are going to be useful for countering a new type of fortification. The Havoc Charge specifically replaces. We understand that a lot of you really enjoyed playing with the old. There used to be a lot of partisan operations you used to be able to do with the old Satchel Charge. Those operations are likely going to see changes. You're going to have to try to figure out a new way to use this new item. But we're hopeful that you'll get new kinds of operations that will hopefully replace that content with something more interesting. Yep.
Great.
Move on to the video.
And yeah, video footage of it working. I believe I pitched this by saying it's similar to the gum from Mission Impossible, is how it's going to work. So it's fairly simple and cool.
Right. All right. There's one last thing that we want to talk about.
Yep.
Dragon
one more thing.
Teeth.
Oh yeah, my favorite of this update.
Actually, I really waiting for you to say that.
I know. I really like this, and I think it looks really cool in game.
So, what was the reasoning for? What was the main reason, Max, why we decided to put this in now?
So there's still quite a bit more we'd like to add in terms of structures, but we wanted to add this one in specifically because, well, we've needed it for a long time. Frankly, it's a pyramidal slab of concrete that needs to be added, and the existing tank trap that exists in the game today doesn't really fulfill the purpose that it was intended to do. Those ones are too easy to remove by just like wrenching them down, which felt to us just not quite there. But we didn't want to remove those old tank traps because they're still useful for, like, say, blocking a bridge or blocking like a port, like when you're not on the landscape. Those are still useful for that. But when you want to just stop tanks from advancing and you want to create a more defensible position, we needed something that wasn't just spamming concrete AT pillboxes. So these concrete tank traps will be highly resistant to most types of damage. But the kind of damage that it's vulnerable to is the Satchel Charge and Hydra's Whisper, the new placed Satchel
What's their
Charge. So
role?
you could kind of see how it's all fitting together. So the Wardens will need an earlier game version of the Hydra's Whisper in order to clear these things out. Yeah,
And I think, I think another thing that we wanted to do, and there was more we actually wanted to do on this front, but this was a more complicated update to schedule in. Is we definitely have heard the complaint that we've been continuously adding ways to destroy bunkers, but um, nothing has changed in terms of like preventing that from happening. And we know this isn't going to address that issue head on, but it is a small thing to, another finally a tool that we can add back into the builder's hand to try to move things in, bounce things off in the other direction. So
I also think it's cool that infantry can use them as cover and have gunfights in them and hide from tanks and stuff. So there's lots of cool implications of it.
Yep, they're also vulnerable to artillery, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
Cool. All right. I think that wraps it up, and we're gonna end the stream here because we've gone overtime. But we will do a shortly after this, in an hour or two, maybe 3, post a thread on the subreddit so we can answer any questions that you guys might have regarding this update. We're gonna aim to get the dev branch out tomorrow. There's always the possibility of a delay if there's issues, but that's our current goal. So you can hopefully look for that tomorrow, if not the day after. Anything else we want to say?
Normal disclaimer is when the dev branch comes out, for those who've never been a part of it, that is your moment to get the word in to talk about the issues with the update. So please check that out. You'll be able to find that information on our Discord. You can, once you're in there, use those channels. Please read the pins in those channels and follow them to the letter, because there's always a lot of feedback that comes flying in. So just make sure you follow that feedback, and that'll help us out a lot.
Cool.
Great. All right.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we want to touch on, Mark?
No, I think we're good. We'll follow up on the Q&A thread. That's it.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, this was a very eventful dev stream. We're excited to get this stuff in your hands. So that'll be, just to reiterate, we're going to try for tomorrow, but there might be delays. You never know, for the dev branch, not for the release. And yeah, so that's it. So we'll talk to you next time. As always, stay Foxy.